Hello, YouTube team. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you're feeling full of hope and courage. Let me just give you a little dose of something good today to help move that along and help you move towards the weekend, the Memorial Day weekend. Let me allow me to do something a little more theological than I normally do. Most of the time, I try to directly connect the daily dose to our lives and something that's happening in our world. Let me connect today's daily dose to the life of God, His life that is entirely and uniquely awesome. I want to do so because powerful hope that stands up when everything is falling down is nested in the extraordinary nature of God. See, we need this kind of hope, particularly now in the world we live in. Courage that shows up in the worst time stems from a thorough knowledge of God, the holy, the mysterious, the wonderful God. We need this kind of courage, and there is a quality and a quantity available to us through our understanding of God, of this incredibly unique and wonderful God. So let me visit Job. Job 37 is a great place to do this. It's a great chapter to work with. Job's friend Elihu is actually the one talking, and in this chapter he describes God's greatness in cosmic terms, using meteorological language. Right? He talks about God's power over thunder and lightning. He describes God's power over the windstorm and the rains. In verse 13, he explains that the incredible, uncontrollable power of weather are tools in God's hands with which He punishes, or He cares for the land, or He uses His acts of His faithful love. And then Elihu does something interesting in verse 15 that relates to us. He asks Job, he says, can you understand how God does all of these amazing things? Now, Job could not have possibly known, but we can. See, physics has cracked the code on a lot of these phenomena. We know how clouds are formed. We know how the systems move, the systems behind weather and the seasons move around the world. We've clocked wind speed and measured the voltage of lightning. But before we get too excited, before we get too ahead of ourselves, Elihu forces God's otherness onto us again in verse 18. And he says this, he asks Job, and by extension all of us, he says, but can you help God with any of these? There it is. We may understand how some things work, but we certainly can never, ever help God with making the processes work, managing the processes, or organizing the processes. See, we will never be able to organize the rainstorm for the land's sake. We cannot direct the weather as acts of faithful love. We can only cooperate with the weather at best and hide from it when needs be. See, God alone has that level of power. God alone has that level of genius and that level of authority. Verse 18 decisively draws a boundary between human knowledge and God's power. Humans may be clever and devise many schemes, the scripture says. Human may seem mighty in history and in the world history, but God alone is cosmic. God alone is eternal. God is without peer. God is completely self-existent. And the event of our lives are shocking at a macro and a micro level. I get that. I really do. So please take some time, dear friends, to look beyond them to God. Quoting the prophet Daniel, He changes the times and the seasons. He raises up kings and He takes kings down. He gives wisdom to the wise, knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals that deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness. Light dwells with Him. So we are not victims. And even when it's totally, totally bad, God is still God and remains this awesome organizing and driving force towards ultimately what is good and best for all. Have a great day. The Lord be with you. Again, good weekend. See you next time.